this going? How's everybody doing out there? Hope everybody's good today. This is a special message for Americans, people that are, and the world. But I'm an American citizen, so it's proper that I acknowledge, the situation of Americans right now. Um, and it's not good, but that's life. That's history. No country, men or women, go without experiencing the history of the country. And sometimes people remember it and acknowledge it, and sometimes people don't. And hold on, let me take this filter off real quick. It seems like it's wandering, yeah, the screen. But you know, um, sometimes people don't acknowledge history, and that's not a good thing. Check, check, check. Is the mic working? Yeah, okay. It looks like it's working. Okay. Yeah, and that's not a good thing because people repeat history when they don't acknowledge it, when they don't learn it in schools. And that it is proper that Americans learn from history. It's very proper. Um, just like everybody needs to learn from history. Everyone needs to acknowledge history. But because there are enough, not all, most Americans, if you ask me, acknowledge history. They acknowledge history of the country, because many Americans experienced it. Their family members experienced it. A lot of people may not have family members that go back, and this doesn't matter where you're from. You could be from anywhere. You could look any kind of way. That's no promise that your family is from the United States, like from the beginning of it. And I'm talking about the beginning of the country, not the continent, right? Now, but there are a lot of people that do not want to acknowledge the history of the country, and because of that, it's created. There's been a divide, and I won't say it's a racial divide or anything like that because it's not. We've clearly seen that. We've seen black people say some of the most absurd, disgusting things that show they could never know something about history. I'm talking about black Americans, some that come from, might come from families, might come from slavery. Um, yes, we have a lot of European names. It's easy to tell the ethnic group African American apart from other groups of African diaspora, because of our names and our culture, right? Just like it is, if you want to know the difference between, if you want to know who a Somali is versus who a Gambian is, just look at their culture. You will know. They might share some things in common, but there will be some other things that are a little different, right? Maybe. And they're both Muslims, and it could still be different, right? Very distinct. Now, but back to the U.S. The U.S. is in trouble because of Donald Trump, not specifically only him, but the Republican Party and its willingness to, well, not even willingness, I would say the Republican Party bent their knee. They got taken out by Putin because of their corruption. And when you have politicians that are always looking for a handout, when you have politicians that don't treat other American citizens like they're American citizens, when you have politicians that use race a lot as a divide, these are the people that tend to get caught up with Russian spies and get in bed with Russian spies. And some of them may not figure it out until it's too late because obviously spying is one of the expertise that Russians have. And I'm not saying that they have any natural ability to do it better. What I'm saying is that they have a situation which gives them a need to do it better. And in that part, Republicans, you know, being politicians, they should know the hazards of taking handouts. They should know the hazards of being so divided. Preaching such divided preach talk, right? Being very divisive with their language. They should know what racism, fascism, they should know what these things bring. They should already have a perspective from history. Um, a lot of people don't know this. Let me pull this up because I'm going to go through a few sources here, but I want to do it. Let me see if I could go to this first. Right. Oh, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go to Chat GDP first. Hopefully, I can. Let me see here. Uh, where and why did the book called "The Protocols of the Elders of Zion"? Where and why? Yeah. Let's see here. Let me. Can you guys see this? Let me pull this over here. Oh, let me switch the screen. I see. I see. I'm on the wrong one here. Boom. Now you can see it. Oh, let me switch this over to. Now let me see here. Just for people to realize this. Now I go back to this book because it illustrates how disinformation can be very slick and sly, and how disinformation might have some components of truth in it. It's like a carrot to get you stuck on it, to get you to take the bite. It's like the fit. It's like the bait. Um, yeah, and why is Smart Zoom doing this? Let me zoom out a little bit. Yeah, and once you take the bait, then comes the manipulation. Okay, and the Republican Party, they fell for that, and it should really be self evident because bigotry, essentially, people that are really caught up in bigotry, people that are really bigoted towards women, different races, and anybody can be a bigot, no matter where you're from, right? No matter what you look like, no matter what your sexual orientation is, no matter what your gender is, all people have the possibility to become bigots if they're not educated about history. History should be your tool to help you not be so ignorant, not be so divisive, not be so problematic, not destroy things that you have that are good for you. History should help you make good sense out of your choices. It should help you navigate what to do, but not to do. So, leading back to this book, Hitler, yes, I said it, Hitler read this book. But the thing is that he didn't know the book was fake. He didn't know where the book came from because anti Semitism, before it became like a big issue in Germany, it had become an issue in Russia. Yes. And so that is part of the history of Europe. And yeah, and the book was created by a czar who wanted to blame the problems, the economic problems of their own nation on a minority group who at that time they decided to pick at Jews, quote unquote, whatever they may look like, whatever they may sound like, whatever they may talk like or claim to be like. That's the group that they targeted. Now, let me just play this so you can hear back what it says. Let me see here.
The book, The Protocols of the Elders of Zion, is an infamous and widely debunked anti-Semitic forgery that was created in the early 20th century in Russia. It falsely claims to be a secret document outlining a Jewish plan for world domination. Origins and creation. The text was likely fabricated in the late 1890s or early 1900s by agents of the Russian secret police, Okhrana, in Tsarist Russia to justify anti-Semitic policies and blame Jews for social and economic problems. It was first published in 1903 in a Russian newspaper by Pavel Khrushchev, an ultranationalist and known anti-Semite. A more widely distributed version appeared in 1905, included in a book by Sergei Nilus, a Russian mystic and propagandist. Plagiarism and hoax. Researchers later discovered that much of the text was plagiarized from an earlier 1864 satire called Dialogue in Hell Between Machiavelli and Montesquieu by Maurice Joly, which had nothing to do with Jews. Other parts were taken from an 1845 novel by a German writer, Hermann Goetsche, who also wrote fictional conspiracy theories. Spread and impact. After the Russian Revolution, 1917, anti-communist groups spread protocols as proof of a Jewish Bolshevik conspiracy. It was translated into many languages and promoted by figures like Henry Ford in the US and the Nazis in Germany, despite being exposed as a forgery in 1921 by the Times of London. Despite being debunked multiple times, it has continued to be used as propaganda by various anti-Semitic and extremist groups worldwide. Would you like more details on its influence in specific countries or historical events? The book, The Protocols of the Elders of Zion, is an infamous and widely debunked anti-Semitic forgery that was created in the early 20th century in Russia. It falsely claims to be a secret document outlining a Jewish plan for world domination. During World War II, there were US senators and public figures who were sympathetic to Nazi Germany, promoted pro-fascist views, or were suspected of having ties to Axis propaganda. However, there is no confirmed case of a sitting US senator being an actual agent of the Nazi Party in an official capacity. That said, some were investigated for their connections to Nazi propaganda. Nazi influence and sympathizers in the US government. 1. Senator Ernest Lundeen, Minnesota, died in a plane crash in 1940. Lundeen was suspected of having connections to a Nazi propaganda ring in the US. He allegedly collaborated with George Sylvester Viereck, a known Nazi agent who worked to spread pro-German propaganda in America. Lundeen died in a mysterious plane crash on August 31, 1940, while carrying a speech allegedly written by Viereck. Some speculate that the crash was not an accident, though no solid proof has surfaced. Bubba 2, Senator Burton K. Wheeler, Montana, a leading member of the America First Committee, which opposed US involvement in World War II and sometimes echoed Nazi-friendly rhetoric. While not a Nazi agent, his isolationist stance was seen as favorable to Hitler's interests. 3. Representative Hamilton Fish III, New York. He was accused of working with Viereck to spread Nazi propaganda in Congress. Investigated by the FBI, but never officially charged. 4. Representative Martin Dies Jr., Texas, head of the House Un-American Activities Committee, HUAC. While mainly focused on rooting out communists, some of his investigations revealed Nazi sympathizers in US politics. Nazi propaganda and US influence. Nazi Germany spent money on propaganda in the US, using people like Viereck to plant articles, speeches, and influence lawmakers. The FBI investigated multiple individuals for suspected Nazi collaboration, including journalists, businessmen, and politicians. Some German-American organizations, like the German-American Bund, openly supported Hitler and attempted to spread Nazi ideology in America. Conclusion. Yes, there were American politicians with Nazi ties, and Senator Ernest Lundeen's plane crash remains one of the most suspicious incidents. While it's debated how deep his involvement was, it is clear that Nazi propaganda had some influence in pre-war American politics. Would you like more details on Lundeen's crash or the broader Nazi influence in America at that time?
Right. So, at this time, as you hear, there were people being investigated for being maybe not agents, but assets or possible agents for the Nazi Party, right? And they would spit out rhetoric that is exactly like Hitler's along his political interest lines, exactly. And unfortunately, people didn't know this. So, okay, I'm back, folks. People didn't realize it at the time. Why would someone suspect that? I mean, why would an average person suspect that they have an issue with people conspiring with foreign governments? Why would the average person expect that? And now The United States federal government, CIA, FBI, they already illustrated some time ago to the American people that there was collusion. And what they mean by collusion is all the other things: agent for another state, conspiring for another state, these kind of things. And the idea was is that they're conspiring with Putin, and that's what has been said even before Biden became president. And now what you're witnessing is Americans being duped. Americans who didn't realize it, they're reacting in the polls now, because now they're not realizing how connected these people are to Putin, and they don't realize how much harm these people have in mind, like Putin and Trump. They don't realize the totality of it, but they're beginning to recognize some of it, that it is collusion. It is spying. 9/11. People people wonder what happened 9/11. People are still asking for answers for 9/11. Well, 9/11, a lot of information is still being held back. Now, you might want to connect this event to 9/11. And I'm not afraid to say it because it has a lot of similarities. Disinformation. And he who spreads the disinformation is he who would want to cover something up. And around 9/11, there was a lot of disinformation. You saw videos appearing and how do you get these videos? Who makes these videos? You had videos appearing where they were saying, look at this didn't happen. And really, what happened was this and this, and all of it, a lot of inconsistencies there and a lot of fake made up stories about what happened. Not one story, various, 5 different stories. They can't all be real. And you might want to ask yourself, who was behind that? Anyway, long story short, things worth knowing. Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, it's the afternoon over here in the EU, actually. um, what was I saying? Yeah. So in any case, Trump is fulfilling Putin's agenda, and for some people, they see this as a political dynamic. Like, they might see it as a game. A lot of people that I talked to last year kind of handled these conversations like a game, like a game. you know and I'm sorry, I don't have a lot of tolerance for games, because I don't come here to mess with people, to mess over people. um I know life is not a game, and I think American citizens are about to find out for real that they should have been paying much closer attention. All American citizens, this affects you. This affects your life. This affects the trajectory of your family history. It does, especially if you're a minority, or especially if you're just any one of these people that happen to fall on the fascist extermination list, or oppression list. Women, natives, you know, all types of stuff, all types of people. We don't need to just talk about color, all types. You see, they want to control your body, make you have babies. Do you know what happened when the Nazi party tried to force people to have babies together, to have the perfect babies? They ended up with a lot of screwed over effects from that, from inbreeding. Really, seriously, inbreeding, not inbreeding like talking about somebody sleeping with their cousin or their mom or their daddy or their brother. No, not that. I'm talking about just still a small gene pool. Yes, that causes a lot of health effects. You see, and the Nazis have a legacy of that. They left a lot of people like that. Seriously. And in fact, they had the nerve to even kill not just these babies. These babies were discovered, these children were discovered when the Nazi party fell, that they had been forcing people to have children with each other. But they were killing undesirable children the entire time, handicapped children the entire time. Irony, huh? They weren't too clever. They were clever at manipulation, though. And that's the same thing Putin is very clever at: manipulation. See, manipulation is almost just as strong of a tool as a bomb or a weapon. You could have great weapons and technology, but manipulation is another type of technology. It's another type of tool. It's another type of instrument. It's an instrument of warfare. And American citizens have been plagued with so many divisions. How do you think these divisions survive for so long? Disinformation, someone tampering with you, and it comes under the guise of freedom of speech. Yes, that's the reason why they haven't exterminated it, because somehow there's an idea that if you destroy it, it will only harm your own cause of bringing light to it, of showing people how to avoid it. But yeah, because everybody's not too readeth. You know what I'm saying? Everyone is not too interested in reading and have really good comprehension skills. Not everybody can pick up a book and see that it's filled with lies. Some people pick up books because of the cover, and they see somebody that looks like them, talks like them, is saying some instant things they want to say. We love you. And then they just suck it all up, anything that's inside of the book. Yeah, this book must be about love. This book must be about somebody love me, when really it's about somebody that wants to enslave you. So that's what disinformation does. And American people are under threat. They are the first people under threat, because the first people that are under threat would have a government that goes along with the disinformation. Those are the first people that are a threat. And as you can see, there's no EU nation that's going along with this bullshit. More disinformation. The EU has 450 million people. The United States has 350 million people. Russia has 150 million. Russia's GDP before the war was smaller than Italy. The EU's GDP is 15 trillion a year. The United States was 27 trillion a year before Trump came into power. Now we're going to find out how much it tanks. Um, but I'm saying these numbers so you can read between the lies. Um, the lies that Trump spit out there, how the EU is not paying its fair share. The EU has more people, but a smaller GDP. Americans have less people, and 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 a third, their GDP is almost a third greater than the EU. What about fair share? What is fair share? What's fair share? Exactly. And the EU was already paying more money to Ukraine, not paying them, but supporting them in aid. And yet the media stations just spread lies. The senators, the Congress people from Congress, they just accepted the lies. That's not what journalists are supposed to do, and that's what not what politicians are supposed to do, because politicians take an oath. Politicians are out there saying they care about people. Republican politicians say it. Do you think they're lying, or do you think they mean it? Do you think they're taking a handout? Do you think they've been compromised? Do you think things have gone too far for this to stop? Or do you think it's going to grind in slowly and have other effects? Do you think a disaster is going to come? I mean, I'm just saying, because this is the United States of America we're talking about. A disaster is always coming because of global warming, climate change. A disaster is coming. And look at who's in power. Look at what they're saying. And a disaster, we're not even talking about climate change. There's a political disaster about to strike the United States today. So let's get into it. And it's going to hurt people. It's really going to hurt people. It's actually really, really scary. But hold on for a second, because I don't have all my information on my computer. But I'm going to see if I can pull some of the links over to my computer real quick from my phone. Hopefully it will let me do it. Where's that at? Damn, did I just mess it up? Okay. The lights in the U.S. are about to go out because a lot of the electricity grid in the northern states comes from Canada, y'all. Um, so anytime Canada wishes to cut those off and make things hard on American citizens because they elected a president who is hostile towards them, that can happen any day. Let me see here. So let me look this up. Uh, I can see I missed it on my phone, so let me just call this one back up. 2 seconds, y'all. Google. Okay. Uh, yeah, the energy grids are are a lot of them from the northern states are actually in Canada, and it's just something people should be aware about. Now let me see here. Okay, yes, there. Okay, let me see here. A devastating blow to U.S. energy sector. Trade war published approximately 2 weeks ago. Okay, let me see here. Yeah, that's what it's called. Okay, let me try to pull this up now. Hopefully it comes up. Let me see here. Is it this one? All right, well, I'm going to have to find that one later. But in any case, this video it illustrates the fact that Canada can actually cut off a lot of electricity in northern states like Detroit, like Michigan. Yeah. Let me see something. Let me try to find which which states in the USA depend on energy from Canada. Yeah, several U.S. states rely on energy imports from Canada, primarily for electricity, oil, and natural gas. The most dependent states include New York, Vermont, Maine, New Hampshire, Minnesota. Now, remember, Maine, sadly enough, I don't know why, because they should need help. They have a lot of trees and potatoes, and things like that. But basically, Maine people want need jobs. People need stuff. And, yeah, it hasn't been coming to Maine for a long time outside of the fishing sector, which is also plummeting. Um, but yeah, let me go on. New Hampshire, Minnesota, they can be affected by Canadian electricity instantly, just from one day to the next, cut off. Oil and natural gas dependency. Michigan, Illinois, Ohio, North Dakota, and Wisconsin. Yes, they can be extremely affected. And in case people don't know, that was pretty much obviously going to be the effect of this, that you would pay more for gas. In fact, you may end up in a war over gas. There may not just be enough gas, even though Trump promised to pump gas. That was a lie, because the U.S. or it doesn't matter how much gas you pump. Can you afford the price of it? If it doesn't go down, it doesn't go down because the oil oligarchs don't want it to go down. Pipeline and infrastructure dependence. Keystone pipeline systems supply crude oil from Alberta to refineries in the Midwest. Enbridge, Line 5, runs through Michigan and supplies oil to the Great Lakes region. Hydro, Quebec, and Manitoba Hydro exports electricity to multiple northern states. If Canada were to cut off energy exports, these states would experience higher energy prices, supply shortages, and economic disruptions. Okay, now the next thing that's going on is Canada Canada sets up a trade alliance that circumvents the USA. Yes, Canada and the U and Mexico, they're about to go around the United States of America. The U.S. has oceans on both sides, and in the south of the U.S. is a lot of countries, and in the north there's Canada, and Canada's powerful, pretty powerful on the global stage. Their presence on the global stage, quiet as kept, is present, heavily present. Um, well, they're about to go into some other deals starting today with Donald Trump's tariffs. Whenever, I don't even know if they kicked in yet officially. Let me know. I'm gonna check it out too in a second. But from what I hear, y'all, they're going. Everybody else is going to trade with each other, and the U.S. is going to be the odd man out. And the reason why that is because people outside of the United States of America and outside of Russia, Russian people don't even have a voice, to be honest. So I don't want to say Russian people. They live under a dictator and a violent regime that's had power for quite some time, 30 years. Putin has been in power 30 years. So Russian people don't even believe they have a voice. They don't. They keep their heads down and just do whatever because you can just get thrown into jail. Period. But there is no political opposition that's not going to die or be in jail in Russia. So they don't really have a voice. But Canada, Mexico, and a lot of other countries, um, they've already put together and they're about to implement um, a new trade agreement that's going to circumvent the United States. And all of these countries south of the United States are going to trade with Canada, and Canada is going to trade with them. And they're going to cut out the United States because the United States has a hostile government towards other nations on its border. So that's what they're going to do now. And the American people are going to have to go through those effects because American people in the United States pretty much don't vote. They pretty much don't vote. I mean, you know, when you have things worth knowing. Oh, let me drop the link. I'm sorry. Good grief. Um, I didn't know that was you, sister. Here, anybody want to hop up? Go for it. Um, 80 million American people regularly in each U.S. presidential election don't vote. That's a bigger population than most European countries. In fact, maybe that may be bigger. you know, if not number one, it's number two. It's close. And yeah, 80 million American people. That's quite high for a free country. Um, do people that have that percentage that's like a third of the population. Um, we're talking about eligible people that are 18 and above. Um, I'm not talking about young people. This is just adults, right? Um, 80 million adults in the United States regularly for presidential elections do not vote. Do you think people that don't vote should be free? In the Western world, is freedom not having a vote? Is that what it was? Because slavery, you didn't have a vote. No. And women couldn't vote. Yeah, until the 14th Amendment. Is that a signal that you're free when you don't vote? I'm just asking that question because other nations do not have those types of numbers. Which nations are which nations have the most percentage of pop population that does not vote? Let's just pull it up and see. Voter turnout rates vary significantly across countries, reflecting differing levels of civic engagement. The effectiveness, let me see something here. What about presidential elections? Sorry about that. Because local, city elections can vary in different countries, but just want to get to the one that, you know, usually has the highest percentage across the globe. Um, let's see here. Now, look, voter turnout in presidential elections varies significantly across countries, with some nations experiencing notable low percentage rates. Low voter turnout indicates a higher percentage of eligible population that does not vote. Here are examples of countries with low voter turnout in recent presidential elections. Guess who's top? Venezuela. Who they aligned with? Russia. Um, Less than 50% of the population votes since 1958. Oh, that's the lowest since 1958. I'm sorry, for Venezuela. That's the lowest since 1968, 2018. Algeria, 2024 presidential election saw the Algeria is in Africa for people that don't know, North Africa. Venezuela is in South America for people that don't know. It's the southern neighbor to Colombia. Okay. Although they have different political organization, um, they're neighbors. Um, okay, Algeria presidential election saw an unofficial turnout of 48%. However, more accurate estimates suggest it was even below 25. It was as low as 25%. And guess who's number three? The United States of America, the richest, well, what was the most wealthiest nation on earth before Trump got into power. The United States in 2020 presidential elections had 62.8% of voting age population participate, resulting in this is more than 30%. This is more than a third of the population, resulting in a non voting rate of 37.2%. Why do you think that is? Do you think it has anything to do with disinformation? Think about it. Do you think it has anything to do with disinformation? People suggesting that, oh man, you could vote, but it won't matter. Where do you think that comes from? Do you think that kind of sentiment just stays around without being funded or propagated? It's called propaganda. Your life depends on you voting. The trajectory of the country and how the laws affects you depends 100% on how you vote. If you don't vote, you're taking no civic responsibility for yourself. What are the top 10 countries? Just so people know, get a get a good idea of what's going on here. Come on. I can see the internet is probably being under attack right now. I'm serious. Okay, that was Venezuela, Algeria, Romania, Switzerland, United States. Uh, Switzerland doesn't have a presidential system. Yeah, and 36% among the voting age population, the lowest among 50 countries. Yeah, that's because Switzerland, man, they have a slightly different um, style of government. So they have elections every day, anytime. You see what I mean? Over any issue. And life is pretty good in Switzerland. They don't have this kind of interference from the outside. And healthcare is free, education is free, um, rent is cheap, and wages are up, and assistance. Any type of assistance you need, you can get it in Switzerland. And that's how the Swiss people go about things. They don't have this way of looking at things of subjecting the poor or, you know, subjecting people to this lunacy. Switzerland's a pretty well kept country, but the United States comes right after them. And you can see it's the opposite. Education is not free. Healthcare is not free. These kind of things. Housing is up. And it's the richest country on earth, way richer than Switzerland, but maybe not. The people may not be as rich. The individual people may be more wealthier in Switzerland, just by person, just because they pay people. The corporations aren't hoarding all the money as much of the money as is what's been permitted in the United States. So Swiss people are pretty happy and that, but American people, are you happy? Are you happy with 62% voting? That 37%, are you happy or are you voting because you're not happy? The 62%, do you vote because you're happy? I mean, yeah. In any case, it's actually not looking good. So I'm gonna be on here for a second. I gotta be out in a little bit, about a half an hour or so. But let me know what's going on, folks. I just wanted to chime in with you guys and say hello. Let me see, Trump. Okay, let me see something. CNN. Let me just go straight to legacy media and see what. Oh, you know what? Matter of fact, hold on for a second. I made a mistake. I know what I'm finding. I know what I need to look for. Here we go. Let me see. It was here. I almost forgot. Let me just open this one up. Go to this one. Russia, because Canada. Go to this one. Because frankly, those allies, especially England, they. Okay, let me see here. They owed us. Yeah, you could see. It was one other thing I wanted to show you guys. It was on NBC. All right, let me just go to copy, link to share. Okay, let me put that on WhatsApp. Yeah, I don't really prepare for these lives, but I try to go through the information and hopefully I can remember it. Oh, let me see something. Oh yeah. That's right. Things worth knowing. You sent me a message. Let me check this out here. Okay. Okay, yeah. Roland Martin. That's today. The State of the Union is today. Is that today? Is it Wednesday today? No. That's tomorrow. No, that's today, March 4th. That's Tuesday. Okay. Yeah, okay. So let me check this out here on open this up here. Did I put this? Do I have to log into Facebook to see this? See, you know what? I'm gonna do it differently. I'm not gonna log in on my computer here, but I'm gonna play it back. Hopefully you can hear what's being said here. Maybe I can show it to everybody also. Let me see on the screen. Yeah, go over to my Facebook also, um, for y'all that have it. Now let me see here. I can pull it up now. Can y'all hear this? Let me. Russia, because Canada depends on us for security. Canada trades with us a lot. Its economy is intricately tied to the US economy. So you can bully Canada. You can't really bully Russia that much because we don't do much trade with them. You can't bully China. Even China, it's another vast continental economy that can survive just fine. So the result of Trump in action, the Trump doctrine in action, has been a war on America's allies. But the second more important part is, yeah, you'll gain a little bit here and there by getting slightly better tariff deals. And just so people understand, tariffs in the industrialized world are around 3%. They're very, very low. So the idea, we're not getting penalized in any large ways. You can cherry pick a few examples to the contrary, but mostly among the liberal democratic states of the world, it's a free trade war. But what you will do by squeezing each of these individual countries at all, because frankly, those allies, especially England, they owed us. They owed us money from the First World War, money they hadn't been able to pay back yet. We should focus now on making them pay us back rather than us giving them any more help. I mean, who cares that they're islands for war debts committee? At all, because frankly, those allies, especially England, they owed us. They owed islands for giving that speech on the radio. She's talking about the U.S. senator that was promoting Nazi propaganda and basically an agent, although they don't know if it's an asset or agent if he did it. But I think one of them was really an agent at this point.
Giving in the United States Senate that was kind of along the same lines as that radio
Is
address.
basically what happened with the Republican Party and Putin today. This happened with some politicians with the Nazi Party in the past.
That was the draft of the speech in his pocket. He never got a chance to deliver that speech because he died in that plane crash. But that speech that he had on him, they had in his pocket when he died, turns out that speech was written for him by the Nazi government, by a Nazi agent, by the Hitler government's top paid propaganda agent in the United States. Turns out that Senator Ernest Lundin was being paid by the Nazis. He had been on Hitler.
You see? Now, Senator Lundin, he was actually paid by the Nazis. And so he was really a Nazi agent or asset, you could say. An agent is a person that is, doing some other nefarious type of things. But this guy was essentially spreading their message knowingly. So he's an asset, right? Now, he may not know everything that's going on with himself. They could be easily using him or manipulating him. No one knows, but he knew he was dealing with Nazis, and he knew they were writing propaganda material for him to say, so that the U.S. would avoid going to war with the Nazi Party, so the U.S. would avoid having war in the war with the Nazi Party, this kind of thing. So they had a lot of money, and they were paying off a lot of people in the U.S. government to try to convince politicians to advocate against the war against the Nazis. But in any case, what's happening right now today is that you have something else going on, and that is claims about the same type of situation with senators and governors. Oh, right. Is this up on the screen? Can I see this? Okay, here we go. Here we go. As a matter of fact, let me start with this one.
That was his idea. Our allies are in the middle of being invaded and bombed and occupied by the Nazis, but this seems like a good moment to see if we can get some stuff off of them.
Seizure of the islands may be necessary, as was once advocated by Andrew Jackson, our great American president. Danish and Dutch, British and French island possessions in America, all must become American. In the meantime, our debts are piling sky high, approaching 50 billion, with a $6 billion deficit this year.
Yeah, see, we've got these debts. They owe us. Let's seize their islands to cover some of their debt to us. Let them fight off the Nazis themselves. They owe us. We shouldn't be helping them anymore. Less than 2 weeks after giving that speech on the radio, Senator Ernest Lundin was dead in a mysterious plane crash. Giving that speech on the radio, Senator Ernest Lundin was dead in a mysterious plane crash. When they pulled his body out of the wreckage, they found in the pocket of his jacket a draft speech that he had been planning on giving in the United States Senate that was kind of along the same lines as that radio address. Definitely don't support our supposed allies as they are fighting Hitler. Who cares about whether or not they can fight Hitler off or not? What's so bad about Germany anyway? That was the draft of the speech in his pocket. He never got a chance to deliver that speech because he died in that plane crash. But that speech that he had on him, they had in his pocket when he died, turns out that speech was written for him by the Nazi government, by a Nazi agent, by the Hitler government's top paid propaganda agent in the United States. Turns out that Senator Ernest Lundin was being paid by the Nazis. He had done Islands for Debts Committee. That was his idea. Our allies are in the middle of being invaded and bombed and occupied by the Nazis, but this seems like a good moment to see if we can get some stuff off of them.
Seizure of the islands may be necessary, as was once advocated by Andrew Jackson, our great American president. Danish and Dutch, British and French island possessions in America, all must become American. In the meantime, our debts are piling sky high, approaching 50 billions, with a $6 billion deficit this year.
Yeah, see, we've got these debts. They owe us. Let's seize their island.
So you can see it's the same playbook. It's the same playbook. It's already happened. Um, you know, American citizens have been duped by the Republican Party, and the Republican Party, backed up by very, very, very wealthy people that do not want um, Americans to just be free. They see American citizens as slaves, essentially, as property. And therefore, they don't want to advocate for workers' rights. They don't want to advocate that everyone should have access to health care. They don't want to advocate for fair housing. They don't want that. They just don't see it the same way. They see the average American person as a servant. And although a lot of Americans don't see that, don't understand the language when they say it to them, that's really how they look at it. They don't like the United States of America, and they don't like it because it's not fascist, because it's not an oligarchy, because it's not a place where slavery or servitude is looked highly upon because of its history. Well, you know, it's happened before and it's happening again, and people can learn from history. Uh, and people are going to learn from history. You are definitely going to learn from history. The only question is, are you going to learn the hard way, or are you going to learn the reasonable way? Like, you know,
To cover some of their debt to us. Let them fight off the Nazis themselves. They owe us. We shouldn't be helping them anymore. Less than 2 weeks after giving that speech on the radio, Senator Ernest Lundin was dead in a mysterious plane crash. Giving that speech on the radio, Senator Ernest Lundin was dead in a mysterious plane crash. When they pulled his body out of the wreckage, they found in the pocket of his jacket a draft speech that he had been planning on giving in the United States Senate that was kind of along the same lines as that radio address. Definitely don't support our supposed allies as they are fighting Hitler. Who cares about whether or not they can fight Hitler off or not? What's so bad about Germany anyway? That was the draft of the speech in his pocket. He never got a chance to deliver that
does it sound familiar when people talking about Putin and Russia?
speech because he died in that plane crash. But that speech that he had on him, they had in his pocket when he died, turns out that speech was written for him by the Nazi government, by a Nazi agent, by the Hitler government's top paid propaganda agent in the United States. Turns out that Senator Ernest Lundin was being paid by the Nazis.
I'm glad they gave me sorry about that. The mic was off. I got to stop turning the mic off. But this is Malcolm Nance. And Malcolm Nance is been warning people recently. He has a esteemed career, and as in the U.S. military, like 30 years, something like that, a vet, maybe more, 35 years as a vet, something like that, and working in intelligence. And he's now coming out just saying it's spying, but he's been alluding to this for a minute. And I've also been talking about the spying thing for a year now, that there's spies inside of the U.S. government, Russian spies, and they, but it shouldn't be a secret because these people have been colluding with them, with the Russian government. I mean, they're paid and bought off, and Trump has something over his head. They have something on Trump, and you don't know what it is, but it must be very, very, very bad to be able to twist him. They can twist him a lot of ways. You know, they can manipulate him a lot of ways because Trump is a very selfish, self-centered person. You know, all you have to do is boost his ego up, and he will believe anything you say. As long as you say Trump is great, he will believe anything that comes after it. That's why they got their hooks in Trump. But there must be something else that is also very useful for them that they have on Trump. And I suspect it's something to do with his activities in Russia. something to do with Jeffrey Epstein. Yes. Um, Jeffrey Epstein also could have been some sort of foreign agent. You don't know, or agent for another country. You don't know exactly what it is because, as you see, they're keeping that information from people. And it's likely Trump himself doesn't want people to know. But it's also likely that even the Biden administration, you know, no government would want people to know, want their enemies to know what they know. So in releasing this information, that's the that's the real reason why you wouldn't want to release it to the public, why you would hide certain parts of it so that your enemies wouldn't know how you know and what you know, because that could harm you even worse. But in this case, Epstein, you know, they've been able to use that as a way to manipulate it, also to say that Biden released a lot of it, and the previous administration had released a lot too. Biden extended it and did even more, and now you hear from Trump. Is Trump releasing any new information, anything new, or is it just the same information? They already have the flight logs, but where are the videos? And I think it's going to come down to things like that in Russia with videos. They must have something about this information, or maybe he participated in Russia with this information. So let's take or participated in these actions in Russia. You don't know because Trump has been in Russia, was doing business in Russia. It's likely that they likely have something that you would never imagine about Trump. I'm telling you. Now let's listen to Malcolm Nance.
Man spy. America, you're beyond in danger. Right now, the enemy is in the gates. In fact, not only is the phone coming from within inside the house, this week the United States has joined with the Russian Federation. And I'm going to tell you quite honestly, the spies are running this.
Oh, let me see something. Somebody's no sound. Yeah, this internet has been acting up the last couple of days. Can you hear the sound now? Let me just double check on my phone. Let me know if you can hear the sound also. Let me see here. Yeah, I'm just doing a quick one today because I just want to get some info out for people. Yeah, and take the information however you want to take it. I'm an American citizen, born and raised in the United States. My family is from the colonial days in the United States, but I live abroad. I live in Copenhagen, Denmark. I live in Europe. So I can tell you a lot about what's going on the ground here, what people think here. And I can also, since I'm a pretty avid reader and lover of history, politics, I try to stay up on these things. So, and do my part. But people are free to do whatever they like. Let me know if the sound is working, but let me see if I can catch it on my phone. See how the sound sounds. I believe it was working before. Okay, the sound is good now. Yeah, thank you, Hazel. Appreciate that. Also, anybody want to hop up? You just hop up because I'm just chilling today. I don't have any. I mean, I only have a little bit of time, but there's no set agenda. I just wanted to get a few things off of my mind. And but let's listen to Malcolm. He's basically saying that no, there's definitely the U.S. government, Trump is definitely being directed by Putin right now, like definitely. And there's definitely Russian spies in his camp or Russian agents in his camp directing him. They're around him. So some of those people that you see around Trump in the Oval Office, some of them are in contact with Russian agents, like directly, whether it's on the telephone, whether it's, wherever they're staying secretly. You see what I mean? When you're in a group of a lot of people, it's easier to hide one or two other people. You see what I'm saying? So, and yeah, so he's saying it. You don't have to believe it if you don't want to, but I've said it too. So,
Country, Russia's agents, assets, and resources are running the United States. And I'm not just talking about Elon Musk. Donald Trump went way out of his way with his sycophant J.D. Vance to insult Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky right in the Oval Office in front of everyone in the world. And what did he do? It wasn't that he wanted the gratitude of Zelensky, which Vance asked for. What it really was about was humiliating Zelensky, blaming him for the war, claiming he didn't thank the United States enough, even though there are 94 documented instances where Zelensky thanked the American people from the bottom of his heart and expected him to roll over and give the United States, no, let me rephrase that, give Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and Elon Musk 50% of Ukraine's mineral wealth and all 50% of all future holdings. This is mind-boggling. Even worse, he used the very word.
So, Zelensky could not take that deal because within that deal is a death sentence that was going to break anyway. You see, it's like setting Zelensky up for a failure. You take the deal, but if you don't follow through with the deal, no matter what the circumstances are, you can be blamed for that too. And so, and this is so unorthodox. No one needs to make deals like that because democracy is not about resources. It's about freedom. Even if you are not rich in resources, you should still have freedom to vote, freedom to have some kind of stake in your country's future so that your kids have some kind of stake in the future, right? That's what this is about. This is not about some mineral wealth. You can always trade in the U.S. Ukraine has already been trading with the U.S. anyway. So they have U.S. American businesses in Ukraine just as well as they have other countries. Many Africans go to Ukraine because of the trade. They're allowed to go there and study because Ukraine's doing some kind of trade with them too. I mean, they had things going on, but you got to understand these are things that Putin does not like. And it's just kind of like being a loser. If you don't do things, if you can't build up your own country, which Russia is not really built up, is basically most of it's barren, it's only the western part that's close to Europe on the border that is actually built up, that has infrastructure. The rest of it, there's poor infrastructure. People are poor and nobody gives a damn about them, to be honest. Even you don't even want to know what anybody in Russia thinks. And Putin doesn't want you to know because he's not going to show you and he's not going to give you any data according to the UN, So they failed to work together. And when they see other people working together, they see it as a threat. So you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, is what we're talking about here. So you ask yourself, do you want to be in a situation where you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't? Maybe you do. Maybe you do. It wasn't that way before Trump, but maybe you want to experience that. Maybe that's the lesson people need to have. I think it's a crazy thing, a crazy idea. I think education is a better idea. I think public discourse is a better idea. Like, in the right institutions, in the right places, in the Congress, in the Senate. But no, not everybody agrees with that. And the Senate and the Congress, led by Republicans, don't agree with that idea at all. They don't want American people holding them accountable. They don't want American people asking them questions they can't answer. But hey, I don't live in the U.S. I'm an American citizen, but I don't live in the U.S. I can't vote in the presidential election here. I vote in the presidential election in the U.S., overseas ballot, but I voted for Kamala Harris. But I vote in the local elections here, the commune elections, the state elections I vote in. But since I'm not a Danish citizen, I can't vote for the parliament, the president here, quote unquote. Right. So, yeah, just to give you some background.
Of Russian President Putin. It was clear in that meeting, Trump worked for Putin, not for America. And that's where we are right now. The person sitting in the seat of the President of the United States works for Russia. J.D. Vance works for Russia. MAGA works for Russia. Tulsi Gabbard, who they put in charge of U.S. intelligence, is firing people across the intelligence agency, trying to gut as much as 20% of U.S. spies for Russia. This is a woman who supported Edward Snowden and called for that traitor to come back to the United States and be pardoned for gutting U.S. intelligence secrets and taking them to Moscow. That's how bad it is. Oh, wait, Malcolm, it can't possibly get any worse. Maybe we're going to hit rock bottom here. Really? Let's go to the Pentagon. Pentagon chief, the drunk frat boy that they put in charge of the Pentagon, a National Guard major, okay, who has alcohol problems and sexual assault charges that he settled. This guy, they claim, is in charge of our defense, ordered the Pentagon.
Listen, most of these people, this is how a lot of them get caught by Russian agents, because they're sexual deviants. Yeah, they like little girls, or they like being, having sex with prostitutes. This kind of thing. Not to sound, I don't, I don't want to make it sound one way or the other, but prostitution, let's call it sex trade, or let's call it human trafficking. These folks, they get involved with nefarious things like this, and they find out that some of the people that are providing the prostitutes are a Russian mob, which are directly connected to the Russian government. And that's a big thing. People like Giuliani in New York fell for that. But what they don't realize is that the individual thinks they just doing this to get some sex, or they're just doing this to get some money. They see it as an individual thing. But what you don't realize is that an organization is conspiring against a large group of people. So they have many agents offering these services to many people collectively with one goal in mind. And when you have enough of them, where you can extort and blackmail, then you have a movement. And Trump is one of those people. So all the people around Trump, you can see they don't make sense, but they have something in common. A lot of them like buying sex. A lot of them like paying for it. And the Russians mob tends to provide a lot of that for a price. And the price is your freedom of your country. Sell out your country. We can give you a little money too if that's what you want. I mean, giving you, $250,000, that's cheaper than fighting a war with the U.S., right? Isn't that cheaper than fighting Biden, who wants democracy for little nations? Isn't that cheaper? Hey, I mean, Putin isn't doing this for a little bit of scratch. Off record, he's the richest man on earth, more richer than Elon Musk. Why? Because he subjugated so many people and controls the state of Russia. You're not even allowed to report on Putin in Russia. There's nothing. I mean, you should take it serious, these things that people say about Putin. I mean, when persons like Biden or Harris are saying these things, they didn't make it up. They didn't say it for fun. They didn't say it for your amusement. But people didn't hear the message. And I'm not saying they said things fast enough. I mean, it wasn't fast enough for me. I was already on to this, and a lot of European nations were already on to Russian spying, Russian tampering in elections. This is what they mean. Buying people, extorting people, offering services to people so they can extort them later or get favors from them later, whether it's money, whether it's sex, whatever your pleasure is. Whatever your pleasure is, that's what they're looking for. And if you don't have morals and ethics, you'll fall for this. If you don't know how to say, no, this is wrong, because in my job, I'm not supposed to be mixed up with anything like that. If you don't know how to say this, you can have a problem on your hands, or your country could, your children could. You don't even have to make it about you. You, your children, your ethnic group, you could all have a problem. And it's happening to different people. Watch.
To stop all cybersecurity operations against Russia, to stop in charge of our defense, ordered the Pentagon to stop all cybersecurity operations against Russia, including offensive plans to stop and attack Russia's cyber operations against America. We literally have a government that is disarming America right now. And many of you are sitting on your ass thinking, oh, wow, what can we do about it? It was an election. No, people. There's more than an election at stake here.
All right. And I'm just going to, Malcolm Nass is not going to say this, but what Russia wanted to do is to make the U.S. collapse from the inside, make people fight each other so that they won't be able to fight anyone outside of the United States. That's the goal. And so as long as Americans go against each other and treat each other poorly and don't respect each other and don't want the best for each other, that feeds into Russia's goals. That feeds into China's goals. That would feed into anybody's goals if you have power. If you're a superpower, that definitely helps you, right? So that's their goal. Why fight? They don't want to fight you on their border. They'd rather have you fight in your country. So they're plotting a civil war, and they've been working on that for a few decades now. Yes, they have been. And you've been hearing about it. You just didn't know it was a real plot. But you heard some whispers. You heard some things somewhere. You did. Everybody that's American knows that. If you haven't been hearing talk of civil war in the United States for decades, you're not an American. You might not have believed it. That's okay. But you heard it. But now you're witnessing what people have been talking about. They may not have known who was always at the bottom of it, but they heard something about it. The Russians have been working with right-wing extremist groups in the United States for decades. And what they have been doing is masking their movement as an American movement when really it's a fascist movement. And it is even deeper, it's anti-American movement designed to make Americans kill, hurt, harm, and maim each other. And that's what you're witnessing. You're witnessing a Republican Party that hates other Americans and wants to dismantle anything, any participation that you might have in a free and fair democratic life. For better or for worse, they want to destroy it. I don't mean for better or for worse. I mean, you could see it any way that you want, but they want to destroy it. You can see it any way you want, but that's what they want. That's what they're working on. And that's what they've been very successful in doing because they got their hooks in a president, but not just the president, a whole group of people. It's hard to stop a group of people without a group of people stopping them. It's easier to stop one person, but it's not one person anymore. And it hasn't been one person since Donald Trump was in office the last time. Now it's a group. Let me know how the tariffs are doing, y'all. I'm going to stop this one. I'm going to put this in a link. Malcolm Nance is not a nobody. He is a veteran who's fought in many wars and who's done intelligence work for the United States government until this point. Until this point. And he's not the only one. So I'm just telling you, folks, it's about to be on. And you might see Donald Trump capitulate a little bit just because maybe he's not ready totally yet. He might back off just a little bit, but I'm telling you, prepare. Prepare. If you are not preparing, you'll be the last one. Everyone else is preparing, and nobody else is taking this as a joke. They're way past the joke. And I'm not talking about Putin It's never been a joke for them. You've been the joke for Putin. But I'm talking about the U.S. allies. They are not taking this as a joke at all. And if you're going to let Putin tamper and meddle inside of the U.S. government, U.S. elections, U.S. everything, if you're going to allow it, you may as well open the floodgates up for everybody to come and meddle now, because that's what they will have to do to stop Trump from attacking them. I hope American citizens understand that, because you've never experienced that in your lifetime, what that's like. Maybe if you're in your 70s, you have. But if you're like me in your 50s, 60s not quite old enough anymore to have experienced that, really, right? So let me go back on this one here. I'm going to go and see, try to check out what the news got right now. Here we go.
Your broker turnout.
Yeah, I hope everybody's having a decent day. Otherwise, I got about 40, 35 minutes left. Let's see
To
here.
be a scammer.
Oh, sorry. Should have let that play. Let me know how y'all feeling out there. Let me know what state you're from.
We read in Politico that Ontario Premier Doug Ford threatened to shut off his province's electricity exports to the United States and block shipments of Ontario's high-grade nickel, which he said provides 50% of U.S. supplies. This is per the Globe and Mail. He added, if they want to try to annihilate Ontario, I will do anything, including cutting off their energy. This is energy to the United States, with a smile on his face. With us now is the man, I guess, behind that smile, Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario in Canada. Premier, thank you so much for being with us. Okay, what are your plans and how far are you willing to take it?
Well, first of all, I have to tell you, Canadians love Americans. We love the U.S. It's one person that's causing these problems. I've talked to senators and congresspeople and governors, Republicans and Democrats. Not one of them agree with them. I've talked to business CEOs of the largest companies. They totally disagree with us. And President Trump ran on a mandate to lower costs, to create more jobs. This is going to do exactly the opposite. The auto sector, we buy over 400% more autos than Mexico, 200% more than anywhere in the world. And, you know, he put up a smoke screen. He keeps moving the goalposts. Well, the market is speaking loud and clear. The market is going to go downhill faster than the American bobsled team. And we're going to continue seeing in the U.S. plants close, assembly lines shut down. In the auto sector, they may last 5, maybe 8 days before I go back and forth across the border 8 times. This is unnecessary, and we do have to retaliate. And I apologize to the American people. It's not you. It's your president that's causing this problem. We're the #1 customer in the world to the United States. We had a great relationship. I want to continue on with that relationship, but I will use every tool in our toolbox to send a message to President Trump that this is the wrong thing to do. More about it, this is basic insanity. You have to listen to someone like Warren Buffett.
So some of the thinking inside the administration, something along the United States, we can stand more pain than you Canada.
Yo, this is insane. Can you do that? You know, this is what Elon Musk, Donald Trump, and Trump's whole cabinet, J.D. Vance, and a lot of MAGA people, this is what they believe. But let me tell you, MAGA people, something. You can't take the pain at all. You have no idea. You haven't really had pain. The only pain that MAGA people have ever felt in the United States is self-inflicted pain by their own party, not wanting to use any tax dollars for the average person's well-being education, the foundations of a society: education, healthcare, and housing. That's just it. You haven't really experienced more pain than that, than your own party has provided you. But now you are about to experience more pain, much more. And you've never experienced it in your lifetime. I'm just saying. So, I mean, if this is what you want, it's a choice. But I have a philosophy myself. You have to be reasonable. You have to have principles and you have to be reasonable. And that means you always carry your principles, but when you're headed up against something that you can't win, so you bypass it. You don't just go head on. You bypass it. Um, Me myself, when I listen to a lot of Americans, and I'm American, and I listen to a lot of Americans, and I hear how unaware they are, because of their lack of experience. Maybe not well traveled, maybe not well read, maybe not practically, um, it not had not have not a lot of practical understanding about the globe. Um, I bypass this shit. I don't wait for Americans to make decisions that are good for them. Fuck that. I don't do that at all. I do my thing, and I watch you over there until you catch up with me. Because I learned a long time ago, if you listen to the average American, because I'm pretty okay, well traveled, and well readeth also. um, I know people ain't gonna listen to me anyway, and I know if I waited for people to catch up to me, I would be dead. I wouldn't even be alive. I would have lived no life. Hmm. Got to learn a thing for yourself.
Here.
Well, we have the lowest debt in the G7. The United States have more debt than anyone. He wants to come and get a tax break, put a tax break through. He's relying on 2 Congress people. He loses 2 people. That's it. These tax breaks aren't going. And he's doing this on the backs of the American people. He's going to create job losses. Inflation's going up. The market's dropping. Gas prices are going up. Groceries are going up.
Hey, when the market drops, do you think that's hurting the rich people? No, because they just gonna buy in some other stock, some cheap stock now. But the poor people, do you really even have money to buy stock? The stock, you can get all kinds of stock right now. I'm going to get some stock, but the problem is that it ain't going to go up anytime soon until you get rid of Trump. So there's no hurry to buy the stock right now. It could keep going down. Yes, let it keep going down if that's the case. If that's what Americans want. If that's what MAGA people want, okay. But I mean, my stocks. I'm looking at my stocks every day, and I'm like, damn, what's going on with the U.S. I mean, they don't want to push industry forward. They don't want to make stuff anymore. They don't want to sell things. Very interesting, because that is what Trump is about to do. Trump is about to stop your ability to make anything that you can sell to anyone else. And the moment you cannot sell it to anyone else, you're about to go broke. Americans don't know what life is like. You may as well be in an unindustrialized country, waiting for somebody to come and bring some opportunity when you have nothing to sell anyone else. The United States imports a lot of stuff, but it's only because we've been able to sell most stuff to other people for, just I'm talking about more in terms of the value, the economic value of the stuff we're selling. That's why you've never experienced an America that hasn't been selling stuff to other people. And you are about to find out what that is like. You should be very afraid. You should be very pissed off. But you need to start thinking about solutions. You need to start asking yourself, can you make it that far? I mean, the problem's going to get solved, but will you survive the time it takes? Are you in a position to survive the time that it's going to take for the U.S. to get past Trump and the harm that he's doing? And who says you're going to get past it?
For what? We have a very fair trading balance. And if we exclude the energy, the oil that we ship down 4.3 million barrels a day to keep cars going, the U.S. has a $55 billion surplus on everything else, on manufacturing. And I'm fine with that. 55 billion is fine. But we're your number one customer to 28 states. Have directed our office to take off all the alcohol. We're the largest purchaser of alcohol in the world. We sell to 30, or we buy from 35 states, 3,600 products, over $1 billion. They're coming off. We directed our team to pull off the $30 billion of contracts and not use any American companies. And again, I apologize to the American.
I mean, and you know, the crazy thing about it is that Canada can make liquor. I mean, they can make liquor if they want to. Sure. I mean, they would like to have some variety. That's where the Americans come in. They can order some liquor from the US. They order loads of it. Not anymore. I mean, because of course you don't really need to import liquor from America, from the US. You can import it from Mexico.
People, but the red dates, the people have to start calling their senators, their governors, and Congress people to stop this insanity that one person's causing.
What do you understand the demands to be? On the one hand, we've heard over the last few weeks it's cracking down on the border, going after fentanyl distribution. Now the president's saying he wants much of the manufacturing returned to the United States. What do you think the ask is?
Dumb idea. No one makes everything best. That's a stupid idea. If you have a car that's supposed to be the best car, it's got to be made out of the best stuff, the best components. But if someone else already makes a component better than you and has the ability to make one of those components better than you, and you have the ability to make some components better than them, why would you make a component that's worse and think that's going to sell? See, that's the problem here. The United States GDP has grown. They've been able to make more money by working together with people. Don't you see that? And that's all about to go. And guess what? In history has shown when that goes away, you might spend hundreds of years trying to get it back. It doesn't come back so easily. So you have Trump to thank for that, and you have Putin to thank for that. And if you like those things, clap your hands. I mean, if you like it, I would encourage you to clap your hands. You know, do that. Because I give credit where credit is due. That you know, the spying thing is a very good tactic when you don't have power, military power. Spying is the next best thing, right? But you should be careful what you wish for, because if you want war with Europeans, you're going to get it. If you want war with Canadians, you're going to get it. And that goes for Russia or the United States. To be honest with you, I'm just saying it. I'm talking about the numbers. I'm talking about the logistical facts, the machinery. Europe does make its own weapons. It may not have as many as the United States, but they have variety, and variety is good in a situation like that. You see.
Well, you can't in the auto sector, and no one knows what the ask is. It depends on what he wakes up and eats in the morning, and that changes. You know, the auto sector, you can't unscramble an egg that's been made since the 1960s in the auto pack and expect plants to just open up. We buy as many cars as we sell down to the US. It's been working. It's a great system that we have right now with all the auto sectors, but it'll only last 8 to maybe 10 days at the max. And then you're going to see auto plants being shut down. I wish we knew what the president wanted. We need to sit down and move forward on the USMCA and put this behind us.
This is why this is what I'm telling you. The president wants it to be that way. See, most people have a president that wants their countrymen to benefit, to succeed. That's not what the US has right now. What you have is a person that has been compromised by the Russian government. And so that person's goal is to disturb Western markets, to make Western markets plummet. That person's goal is to make the US market plummet, make Canada's market plummet, make the EU's market plummet, and cause harm to anyone that is doing business with them, so that those people will turn to someone else. And if Donald Trump keeps his trade tariffs up and keeps this aggression up, that will work. If he stops it, it won't work. So do you think he's going to stop it? Do you think he's going to tell you what he wants? No. He's just going to keep pretending like, hey, I want to stop. I'm trying my best. I'm going to make America great again. Get the mirage? Make America great again means destroy it. That's what it actually meant. And why should it be destroyed? Same reason why Russia is attacking Ukraine. Ethnic disputes. Ukrainians are not the same ethnicity as Russians, even though Russian propaganda TV might tell you that. That wouldn't make any sense, would it? Because if it was, that way Russians wouldn't be so easy to kill and exterminate Ukrainians, and Ukrainians wouldn't be so steadfast in fighting back and defending themselves if there wasn't an ethnic dispute. And for me, the type of person I am, I'm like, hey, I understand that too. People do have ethnic disputes, but there's always an attacker. There's always an oppressor. And to the Ukrainians, the oppressor is Russia. To other people in the United States, your oppressor may be someone else. But let me tell you, there's one party in the last 40 years, 30 years pretty much, that has been responsible for this right wing, 40 years, right wing extremism. And the right wing extremism coupled itself with Russian spies. And Russia has been known to do this tactic across the globe. And they don't always link up right wing spies. Sometimes stupid left wing people fall for the charade also. Sometimes. Uhuru movement. And a lot of these other Dr. Boyce Watkins, indirectly, they call themselves black, but really they have a white supremacist mindset, and they're not even aware of it. They have a fascist mindset. They're not even aware of it. They say fascist things, Dr. Boyce, but he doesn't even realize it. The joke's on him. That's why he's talking about crypto when crypto is just a dumping block for rich people to scam folks. There's no regulations involved. Everybody's on the come up. So there have been some quote unquote black faces out there, using racial identity and gaslighting their own people. There's white folks that's been doing the same thing in the United States. MAGA folks, Trump gaslighting MAGA folks. Is just gaslighting them, unbeknownst to them. They go for it. Make America great again. And now they're like, damn, we losing our jobs. We're going to lose our SNAP benefits. MAGA people use more SNAP benefits than anybody else in the country. But they voted for someone who's going to take it away. Not only take it away, take their freedom away. So, let me just go to this real quick. I mean, just look at this too. Look at this, y'all. Do I have this open? Okay. There was one thing I didn't read here. It was about the 14th Amendment. It was before the gas and oil. Hold on, let me see here. What did I say? Right. Let me look here. Okay, let me see something. Why do militias have the right to bear arms in the USA? Look at this. Tell me if this makes any sense. The concept of militias having the right to bear arms in the United States is tied to the Second Amendment. The U.S. Constitution. Here's the breakdown. So okay. Let me read it. It's not finished. It's a pretty good breakdown. Oh no, I could play it now. Here, let's check it out.
The concept of militias having the right to bear arms in the United States is tied to the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Here's the breakdown of why militias were historically considered to have this right. Number 1. Historical context and the role of militias. Colonial era and the Revolutionary War. In the 18th century, the idea of militias, local citizen-based defense forces, was essential for the defense of the colonies. The newly formed United States did not have a standing army large enough to protect its citizens, so local militias were organized to provide security. These militias were made up of ordinary citizens who could be called upon to defend the community or resist foreign threats. Fear of standing armies. Many of the founding fathers were wary of standing armies, particularly after their experiences under British rule. They feared that a permanent military force could be used to oppress the people, so they preferred a system where militias could be called upon as necessary, rather than maintaining a large standing army. The Second Amendment reflects this desire for a well-regulated militia. 2. The Second Amendment and militias. The text of the Second Amendment says, "A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." Militia-based rationale. This wording indicates that the right to bear arms was originally connected to the necessity of maintaining a well-regulated militia for the security of the state. The amendment acknowledges that armed militias were crucial for national defense, and to enable citizens to form militias, they needed the right to possess and carry arms. Hummer 3. Role of militias in early America. In the early United States, militias were not formally part of the regular army. Rather, they were organized groups of civilians who were trained and equipped to fight when needed. The idea was that ordinary citizens should have the right to bear arms to ensure they could defend themselves and participate in these militias for the overall security of the state. State and federal militias. At the time, states were responsible for organizing militias, though the federal government could also call them into service. The Militia Acts of 1792 required that able-bodied men between certain ages maintain weapons for potential militia service. 4. Modern interpretation of militias and arms. Over time, the role of state militias has shifted, especially with the establishment of the National Guard in the early 20th century, which became a Federal Reserve military force. However, the legal and constitutional framework still acknowledges that militias, in some form, can play a role in national defense, and the Second Amendment continues to be debated in terms of individual versus collective rights. Court rulings. In the District of Columbia v. Heller, 2008 case, the Supreme Court ruled that the Second Amendment protects an individual's right to possess firearms, even outside the context of a militia, though the historical understanding of militias still plays a significant role in discussions of the amendment's original intent. Conclusion. Militias were originally seen as necessary to the defense of the state, particularly before the establishment of a standing army.
The Second Amendment reflects this by ensuring that militias, and by extension, the citizens who form them, have the right to bear arms. Over time, the role of militias has evolved, but the right to bear arms remains the cornerstone of American legal and political philosophy. But let me ask you all something. How many of you Americans with guns are going to use it to defend yourself against Russia, against a Russian circumvent of the government? How many of you are going to pick up your guns to defend your government from being taken over by foreign agents? Probably very few of you. See, this thing has largely been spread. The idea of weapons being so important in guns. Don't get me wrong, I believe in the right to bear arms myself, especially in the United States of America, where there seems to be a huge problem with guns. But the idea about what people want to use these guns for is very different. It's not to protect the government. It's not to protect your country from invasion. It's not to protect your government from being infiltrated. It's not to protect yourself from a foreign government. Because if it was, you'd be thinking about it right now. Facts. I mean, I hope you didn't think those guns were for no reason at all. I hope you didn't think those guns were just to kill some other ethnicity. The guns are actually there to protect your government from being overthrown. And it is being overthrown right now. It's being overthrown right now.
How upset, how mad are Canadians? Canadians aren't usually the types to get angry, but how mad are Canadians this morning?
They're absolutely livid. They're furious because we look at the United States as our family. We're one big family. We've stood shoulder to shoulder in wars and every other crisis there is. We love the American people, but unfortunately, the president has gone sideways on ourselves. And you know, we power, Ontario powers 1.5 million homes and businesses.
And not just a little bit of sideways. We're talking about extreme, the most extreme sideways things. I'm talking about destruction of the US. It's that extreme. And you may not being told that, maybe see media is not using those words. I wonder why. Did they prepare you for the stock market crash? Did they prepare you for when your SNAP benefits run out? Did they prepare you for any of this? No, because they're never going to tell you the most extreme case scenarios, because obviously they're not into panicking people, and neither am I. I'm just saying, but who's going to be there to think for you, to think in advance for you? Who's going to, is everybody in the same situation in the US? Can everybody just maneuver the same way? Or do some people have better tools to maneuver than others? And the people that have better tools to maneuver than others usually are more prepared than others. But what about you? Is the media serving you? Did the media serve MAGA people? No. The media helped propagate some of the lies that Putin wanted to be disseminated to MAGA people. And now the effects are kicking in because you got a president because of that interference in your elections. And that president is going to do some of the most anti-American things that have ever happened, more powerful than any foreign government could do from the outside. See, Americans can do it all to each other since they hate each other so much. Since MAGA people hate liberals so much, you see, that's their number one enemy, the liberals. That's the number one enemy to the MAGA folk, is the liberals. All right, y'all, I'm out. I hope it was worth the price, because you're going to pay for it. I'll be back with y'all tomorrow. Peace. Appreciate it. Click like and subscribe when you get a chance, y'all. Peace.